Hey guys, tonight we're taking a little detour from plagues and pirates to visit a stranger battleground, the kitchens and cul-de-sacs of 1950s suburbia. Not the black and white TV version with polite laughter and perfect pie crusts. No, I'm talking about the real world of Tupperware parties, questionable casseroles, and housewives whose secret weapon wasn't elbow grease, but a tiny pill that could make June Cleaver smile through nuclear fallout and a toddler's meltdown. Before we dig into the pharmaceutical fantasy land, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this sort of thing. Drop a comment with your city and what time it is, because someone out there is definitely folding laundry at 2 a.m, half awake, dreaming of the kind of pill that would make a sock-matching marathon feel like a day at the spa. Now dim those lights, set your fan for maximum white noise, and get comfortable in whatever loungewear you swore you'd never wear outside. Pull your blanket tight and try not to think about whether there's a dust bunny the size of a chihuahua lurking under your bed. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what it was really like to be a housewife in the 1950s? Did anyone actually enjoy vacuuming in heels, or was everyone just a little bit sedated? Was meatloaf night an act of culinary enthusiasm or a desperate cry for help? Did your neighbour's eternal smile hide a tranquilizer, or was she just naturally unfazed by toddlers, door-to-door salesmen, and her husband's new obsession with backyard grilling? If you had to host a bridge club, polish the silver, and maintain the illusion of perfect domestic bliss, how long before you started eyeing the medicine cabinet as your new best friend? Congratulations, you've just woken up in 1955. Your hair is set, your apron is starched, and there's a little orange bottle in the medicine chest prescribed by your doctor, endorsed by your friends, and guaranteed to help you smile through whatever suburban absurdity the day throws your way. Sunlight creeps through floral curtains, and your alarm clock jangles like a caffeinated woodpecker. You rise with a serenity that can only be described as suspicious, smoothing your hair and humming along to the radio, while somewhere deep inside, the little pill you took with last night's milk is already softening the edges of reality. You swing your feet onto the carpet, careful not to trip over a stray slipper or the family dachshund, who seems equally sedated by the hush of 1950s suburbia. The floor is cold, but you don't mind, not this morning. Not with your mind wrapped in a warm, gentle fog, the kind your mother used to pray for but could never quite achieve without divine intervention, or at least a generous helping from the family medicine cabinet. In the bathroom, you're greeted by the reassuring sight of your own reflection. Hair set intact, skin glowing with the faintest suggestion of Pond's cold cream, and eyes just glassy enough to suggest spiritual contentment or a low-dose tranquilizer. You brush your teeth, the minty foam a brisk reminder that some sensations are still allowed to feel sharp. Somewhere between spitting and rinsing, you take a moment to appreciate the low-level hum of calm in your chest. No anxiety, no existential dread about the sock pile in the laundry room or the existential crisis that is breakfast for 5, just the pleasant thrum of a mind at peace. Outside the bathroom, the house is waking up. You hear the distant clatter of your husband's shaving kit, and the muffled shouts of children arguing over who gets the last spoonful of Cheerios. But you float. You glide from room to room, trailing a faint scent of lilac talcum powder, orchestrating the morning's chaos with all the urgency of someone reading a weather report about another planet. Breakfast is its own small miracle. Toast pops up, coffee percolates, and bacon sizzles, all with the precision of a military drill, if the army were staffed entirely by people in housecoats and hairnets. You're moving through the steps on autopilot, guided not so much by hunger or enthusiasm as by a deeply ingrained sense of duty and the mellow encouragement of last night's pharmaceutical ally. Every slice of bread is buttered to golden perfection. The coffee is hot, black, and strong enough to remind you that not every beverage in this house is designed to calm you down. Your husband enters, smelling faintly of Old Spice and a night spent dreaming of golf. He asks about the day's plans, and you answer with the same cheerful composure you've deployed since Eisenhower was elected. Dentist appointment for Billy, groceries, bridge club at 3. You rattle it all off, and he nods approvingly, probably relieved he's married to a woman who can handle both the meatloaf and the family's collective mental health, with nothing but a calendar and a bottle of pills. The kids finally tumble down the stairs, hair wild, socks mismatched, shouting about missing homework and the mysterious absence of the family hamster. You take it all in stride. You hand out lunches, smooth cowlicks, and issue gentle reminders about shoes and teeth, all with a placid smile. Someone spills orange juice. No one cries, not even you. As the last school bag is zipped and the door slams behind your herd of children, you're left standing in the calm after the storm. The kitchen is a disaster zone. A sticky, toast-crumbed, orange juice-splattered reminder that life in 1955 is anything but perfect. But you are unruffled. You sip your coffee, gaze out the window at a perfectly ordinary street, and marvel, just for a moment, at how a single, tiny pill has helped you greet the morning not with panic, but with a smile. It's a routine that looks effortless from the outside. But here in the gentle glow of your suburban kitchen, you know better. This is an act of daily heroism, performed with a little chemical help and a lot of practiced grace. You gather up the dishes, crank up the radio, and glide on, ready for whatever mid-century mayhem the rest of the day will bring. Because in 1950s suburbia, the real secret ingredient to every morning isn't just what's on the breakfast table, it's what's tucked safely away in the medicine chest, waiting to smooth the rough edges, one gentle awakening at a time. You glide into the kitchen, whisking eggs with a smile so bright it could power the toaster. The secret ingredient isn't love. It's a calmness that lingers even as you discover the orange juice is more pulp than liquid, and someone's cat has knocked over the sugar again. The kitchen hums with quiet anticipation. Outside, the world might be spinning into Cold War panic or carpool chaos, but here, under the soft rattle of the ceiling fan and the rhythmic click of the gas stove, you are the serene centre of the universe, or at least of your own retro linoleum kingdom. You reach for the bacon, neatly stacked in its crisp white paper, and lay it out in a pan. The sizzle a soothing soundtrack that almost drowns out the memory of last night's burnt casserole and your husband's enthusiastic critique of your meatloaf technique. Each step of breakfast is choreographed with the kind of grace that would make a ballerina jealous. Crack eggs, add a splash of milk, whisk just until frothy, never too much, never too little. You remember reading in Ladies' Home Journal that the perfect scrambled egg is about patience, gentle heat, and an unshakable smile. Luckily, you've got a little help with that last part. The calm in your veins is as steady as the ticking kitchen clock, unfazed by the growing pile of dishes in the sink or the half-eaten banana someone left on the radio. The children stumble in, rubbing sleep from their eyes, already bickering over whose turn it is to have the blue bowl. You hand out placemats and napkins, distribute jelly on toast with the detachment of a seasoned diplomat, and only occasionally wonder what it would be like to eat breakfast in a quiet Parisian cafe, surrounded by adults who don't ask if ketchup counts as a vegetable. The bacon curls at the edges, the eggs puff into gentle clouds, and you plate everything with the practiced speed of someone who knows exactly how long each family member will sit still. Your husband wanders in, newspaper under one arm, eyebrows already furrowed at the headlines. He mumbles a thank you as you set his plate down, and for a moment, you wonder if he suspects that the tranquility in the air is more chemical than culinary. You pour the orange juice, straining out as much pulp as you can, and refill the sugar bowl, sweeping up the last crystalline traces the cat left behind. The radio DJ croons about the good life, and you half listen, half dream of a day when breakfast isn't an Olympic sport. You smile at the table and the table smiles back, Or maybe that's just the shine from the endless supply of silver polish. As forks clink and jam is past, you survey your work. A meal that looks good enough for a magazine ad, minus the part where half the participants are in their pajamas and the dog is licking syrup off someone's sock. The kids devour their eggs. Your husband asks if there's any more bacon. You nod, and the world keeps turning. No one notices that beneath your housewife armour, beneath the fresh apron and the clipped hair, is a mind that's learned to float above the chaos. And that, really, is the other secret of the 1950s breakfast table. The ads promised that with the right mix of eggs, toast, and a well-set table, your family could achieve happiness. But here, you know it's a careful balance, a recipe that includes patience, perseverance, and just enough tranquilizer to keep you from hurling the jam at anyone's head before 9 a.m. When the meal is done, you collect the plates, wipe the crumbs, and set the kitchen back to zero for the next round. You send the kids off to brush their teeth, your husband off to chase the American dream, and you refill your coffee cup and take a moment to appreciate the odd perfection of it all. The perfect breakfast isn't about gourmet food or gleaming countertops. It's about surviving another morning with your smile intact, your nerves unfrayed, and just a hint of artificial peace humming quietly in your bloodstream. You deserve a medal. Instead, you get a lukewarm cup of coffee and another day in paradise. Breakfast is over. On to the next battle. Armed with a vacuum cleaner and enough chemical energy to rival a lab experiment, you tackle dust and disorder with the gusto of a motivational speaker at a pyramid scheme rally. Each sweep of the carpet feels like victory, or at least a tolerable form of déjà vu. You start with the living room, your personal arena, a battleground where the only casualties are dust bunnies and your last shred of patience. The vacuum cleaner, that modern miracle, roars to life like a jet engine with asthma, its cord snaking behind you, threatening to take down a lamp or an unsuspecting child at any moment. But you are undeterred. You are on a mission. The pep in your step is not from coffee, no, that would be cheating. This is a purer, more pharmaceutical motivation, courtesy of the same kindly doctor who believes a housewife's true enemy is nervous fatigue. You set a brisk pace. Curtains are snapped open to let in the sun, nature's only reliable audit for cleanliness. Dust motes swirl like tiny incriminating ghosts, illuminated just long enough for you to chase them with your feather duster. The radio keeps you company, blaring cheerful tunes and ads promising that you too could be a perfect wife. If only you'd try Brand X bleach or learn to smile more while scrubbing grout. Sometimes you catch your reflection in the window and wonder who decided that having spotless baseboards was a sign of moral superiority. With every pass of the vacuum, you feel a rush of satisfaction. There's power in a clean rug, or at least there's the illusion of control in a world where control is in short supply. The dog eyes you warily from beneath the coffee table, convinced this is his last day on Earth. The children's Lego landmines threaten your toes at every turn, but you dance around them with a dexterity that would make an Olympic gymnast jealous. Next stop, the kitchen. You sweep up a battlefield of toast crumbs, sticky fingerprints, and one unidentifiable science experiment growing near the bread box. The pep propelling you forward makes you almost cheerful about disinfecting countertops for the third time today. If you pause for a second to breathe, you can almost hear your own mother's voice in your head, warning you that a single dirty dish is all it takes to trigger a neighbourhood scandal. Cleaning is your domain, your proof that you're still captain of this ship. Never mind that the ship is leaking, the crew is mutinous, and the cargo is mostly mismatched socks. You wipe down windows, fluff the throw pillows, and organise the mail into 3 categories: bills, advertisements, and things you hope will disappear on their own. It's less domestic bliss and more domestic triage. Upstairs, the bathroom awaits, a shrine to white tile and wishful thinking. You scrub the tub until it shines, ignoring the existential question of how soap can possibly leave so much scum behind. The medicine cabinet is a pharmacy in miniature. Cold creams, headache powders, and of course, your bottle of Pep, discreetly tucked behind a box of bandages. You smile, wipe your brow, and think, maybe I should thank the FDA in my prayers tonight. By noon, the house sparkles, at least until the next muddy shoe or unsupervised snack attack. You pause, surveying your kingdom, your nerves still humming with the afterglow of both accomplishment and artificial calm. Cleaning, you've realised, is less about a sanitary home and more about chasing the impossible, the ever-moving finish line of good enough. But for now, you rest. You sip a glass of water, your pep still fizzing just below the surface. There's a fresh, lemony scent in the air, a sense that, if only for a moment, you've beaten back the chaos with your mop, your wits, and your favourite little helper. Tomorrow it all begins again, but tonight you sleep in a house that, at least until sunrise, looks like it belongs in a magazine. And in 1955, that's the closest you'll get to victory. Ladies in pastel cardigans gather round your table, sipping coffee and trading secrets, while you play your cards and your emotions close to the vest. No one asks why everyone is so cheerful. It's just assumed the coffee's unusually strong today. The sunlight glimmers through your sparkling clean windows, illuminating slices of coffee cake and a battlefield of playing cards. Outside, the world hums with the noise of delivery trucks and distant lawnmowers, but inside it's all delicate laughter and the gentle clink of china teacups. You take your seat, greeting Marjorie, who's arrived in a shade of blue so bright it could signal ships at sea. Ethel follows, carrying her usual homemade lemon bars, still suspiciously wrapped in bakery wax paper. You shuffle the deck, careful to keep your face as placid as a pond in June. Bridge is a game of strategy, but here it's also a stage, one where the real contest is who can maintain the sunniest disposition while quietly critiquing the neighbourhood. The conversation drifts from safe topics, weather, recipes, someone's daughter's piano recital, to more dangerous waters. Did you hear about Helen's new curtains? Paisley. In this decade. Someone snickers, and you nod sympathetically, as if Paisley is a gateway drug to complete social collapse. The air is thick with subtle glances and sharper undercurrents. Here, every compliment is just a few words away from a diagnosis. You're looking well, dear. So rested, you say, and everyone knows this means you noticed how frazzled she was last week, when the mailman caught her outside in curlers. The bridge club is equal parts support group and surveillance committee. No anxiety escapes unnoticed, no smile is accepted at face value, and nobody asks about the little bottle rattling in each woman's purse. Bids are made, cards are played, and secrets slip out between sips of Sanka. Martha's husband is working late again, Ethel says, stirring her coffee with unnecessary enthusiasm. That's the third night this week. There's a pause, a collective raising of eyebrows, and then a round of practiced sympathetic noises. It's all very civilised. No one says the word affair, but the word hangs in the air anyway, shimmering like the mirage of a scandal. You're not immune. Your own smile is so well practised it could be carved in marble, and your laughter floats just above the din, never quite touching down on anything too real. Every so often, you glance at the clock, measuring the minutes until you can swap polite company for the silent company of your living room and a magazine that promises eternal happiness for the low price of $1.25 an issue. Occasionally, a real moment sneaks in. Someone confesses to burning dinner, to forgetting a birthday, to yelling at the dog. When that happens, everyone laughs a little too loud, grateful for the slip, grateful to remember that under the pastel armour and shellacked hair, they're all simply human. But the moment passes quickly. Someone shuffles the deck, someone adjusts a sweater, and the conversation snaps back into safe territory. The truth is, These mornings are equal parts competition and confession. You count trump cards and calories, hoping to win both the hand and the approval of the table. You nod along with advice about stains and husbands, all while wondering if anyone else feels the peculiar hollowness that sometimes settles in, even as the room buzzes with laughter. As the game winds down, you pass around the last crumbs of coffee cake and make plans for next week's gathering. The house is filled with the sound of goodbyes, long, drawn-out, impossibly cheerful. When the door finally closes behind the last pastel cardigan, you lean against the wall, let out a breath you didn't know you were holding, and smile, not because you're happy, but because it's the only thing you remember how to do. Bridge club is over. The gossip will circle through the neighbourhood like migrating birds, but for now, you've survived another round, another hand, another morning of smiling through the secrets. You put away the cards, rinse the cups, and wonder, not for the first time, what it would feel like if everyone admitted how tired they really are. But that's for another day. For now, you return to your housewife duties, your nerves soothed by caffeine, camaraderie, and just a hint of something extra, floating gently beneath the surface of suburbia. He arrives peddling vacuum bags, encyclopedias, or miracle cleaners. You greet him with a Stepford smile and the patience of a saint, only occasionally wondering what would happen if you replaced his sample mints with your own secret stash. His knock is always too loud and too early, slicing through the peace you've manufactured with coffee, tranquilizers, and exactly 37 minutes of me time that the magazines promised would change your life. You peek through the curtain. There he stands, suit pressed, tie too tight, hair slicked back with an optimism not even a thunderstorm could flatten. He holds a briefcase filled with shiny pamphlets and the relentless energy of someone who truly believes the right kind of floor polish could change the world. You open the door with a practiced smile, the one that says, "I'm listening, but also, my casserole is burning, and if this goes on too long, so will my patience." He launches into his pitch. Maybe it's a new line of vacuum bags guaranteed to banish even the most tenacious dog hair from your carpet, or an encyclopedia set so comprehensive it might actually help your son pass 8th grade without asking you about the Roman Empire at bedtime. His words tumble out, smooth as the waxed kitchen floor, rehearsed and relentless. You nod politely, marvelling at his stamina, while silently counting how many ways you could politely end this encounter. But he's not deterred. He senses an audience and doubles down, pulling out a sample bottle of miracle cleaner. Just one drop will make your bathtub sparkle like the first day you bought it, and tries to hand you a mint, as if that will sweeten the memory of the last salesman who tracked mud across your linoleum. You let him demonstrate, watching him squirt, scrub and buff with the earnestness of a man on a game show. He talks about value, family and the American dream. His smile stretched so tight you wonder if he took a little something himself. In your mind, you imagine swapping his mints for one of your mother's little helpers, just to see what would happen if both of you started viewing life through the same soft-edged lens. Maybe he'd relax. Maybe he'd drop the hard sell and admit that, just once, he'd like to be invited in for coffee that isn't instant and conversation that doesn't end in a signed contract. You offer him a glass of water, politeness, always, and listen as he compliments your curtains, your roses, the gleam of your kitchen sink. He's read the manual, flatter, demo, close. For a moment, you almost feel sorry for him. You're both just playing your parts after all. You're the cheerful housewife, the gatekeeper of the checkbook, smiling through the stress and the boredom and the underlying sense that, for all the sparkling flaws and encyclopedic knowledge, something is always just a little out of reach. He hands you a pamphlet, all glossy promise, and waits for the yes he's been trained to expect. But you've survived Bridge Club, mid-morning chaos, and at least 2 appliance failures this week. You gently shake your head. using the same voice you reserve for denying children and overeager puppies. "I'll think about it," you say, a phrase that means absolutely not, but thank you for trying. He smiles, hides his disappointment behind a practiced nod, and leaves you with a branded pen and a sense of relief. You close the door and exhale, not quite sure whether to laugh or cry, and decide instead to wipe down the doorknob, miracle cleaner not required. In the quiet aftermath, you wonder if he'll ever figure out that most women buy things not because of the pitch, but because it's Tuesday and the world feels a little less lonely with a new bottle of floor wax. Maybe tomorrow he'll come back. Maybe next time you'll offer him a mint and a seat, and you'll both share a moment of peace. Just two people, tired and hopeful, trying to sell each other a little more comfort in a world that never quite delivers. Until then, you return to your routines, your tranquil smile intact, and a growing appreciation for the real miracle, surviving another salesman's pitch without losing your mind or your patience. In 1955, that's about as good as it gets. Plastic containers stack higher and higher as the ladies compete to see who can look the most enthusiastic about airtight seals. Underneath the giggles and pastel plastic, everyone's eyes have the soft sheen of mild dissociation. The living room has been transformed. The coffee table, normally the site of scattered homework and half-finished knitting projects, now resembles a showroom floor at a plastics expo. Glossy bowls in cheerful sherbet hues, burping lids, and enough modular stacking action to make an engineer weep with joy. You take a seat perfectly perched on the edge of the sofa, the scent of deviled eggs and ambition wafting through the air. On the sideboard, a pineapple upside-down cake wobbles threateningly, an edible bribe for anyone willing to host next week's party. The hostess, your neighbour, Susan, who's already recruited half the block, demonstrates the miracle of the airtight seal with the solemnity of a priest at Mass. She presses, she pushes, she burps each lid with practiced reverence. There's a polite gasp from Marjorie, a chorus of admiring oohs as the freshness of lettuce is preserved for what the catalogue claims is up to 3 weeks. It's not clear if anyone actually eats lettuce that old, but in the world of Tupperware, science is less important than spectacle. You find yourself clapping. It's automatic, the way you once applauded a magician pulling scarves out of a hat. "Look at that seal," someone exclaims, and everyone nods in unison, as if airtightness is the last barrier between civilization and total chaos. But even as you admire the cheerful plastic empire, you can't help but notice how everyone's smile hovers just a little too long, the laughter a touch too high-pitched. It's not just the coffee that's decaf. Emotions here are filtered through a fine mesh of mid-century malaise. The party games begin. Someone wins a prize for stacking the most lids in 30 seconds. You compete in the leftovers relay, balancing containers of potato salad as if Olympic gold depended on it. Beneath the light-hearted competition, you sense a silent undertow of desperation. Everyone wants to win, but nobody wants to seem like they care too much. The real contest isn't about storage capacity, it's about who can appear most effortlessly content. Susan passes around the order forms and the energy shifts. The catalogue pages gleam with the promise of domestic mastery. Imagine, never another soggy cracker. The hostess beams. You'll never waste a single carrot again. You nod obediently, picturing a future where your pantry glows with colour-coded harmony, and your children gaze up at you in awe, thanking you for keeping their celery crisp in a world gone soft. Order forms are filled with a flourish. You check off a couple of containers, careful not to overspend but also not to appear uninterested. Everyone pretends this is about food preservation. But you know what it's really about. Status, community, the shared hope that with enough matching lids, you might finally feel like a woman who has it all together. As the party winds down, the leftovers are packed with military precision into their new plastic homes. The hostess radiates the serene smugness of a woman who's just netted $50 in commission, and you slip your pastel loot bag under your arm like a trophy. Let's do this again soon. Everyone chirps, as if next week's gathering might finally unlock the true meaning of fulfillment, one snap-on lid at a time. You leave feeling both triumphant and oddly hollow. The kitchen is tidier, your shelves are about to be an Instagram fever dream, but that persistent feeling lingers. Maybe, just maybe, the airtight seal is less about freshness and more about keeping something deeper, lonelier from escaping. But you smile as you wave goodbye, promise to host next month, and practice your burp in the car. Because in 1950s suburbia, nothing says I'm fine quite like a perfectly stacked tower of Tupperware and the ability to fake enthusiasm about plastic with every ounce of your mildly tranquilized heart. As noon approaches, you feel the weight of 1,000 chores, 2 crying children, and a casserole that refuses to brown. But where modern mortals would reach for caffeine, you reach for a different kind of pick-me-up, one conveniently prescribed by Dr. Thompson. You check the clock for the 5th time in 10 minutes, as if your sheer force of will might make it jump to 5 p.m. Instead, the hands crawl, time thick as molasses. The house, once alive with purposeful movement, now sags into midday stasis. Sunlight streams through the windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, a gentle reminder that no matter how much you vacuum, the dust always wins. A thin wail rises from the nursery, accompanied by the suspicious silence of your toddler in the hallway. Silence from a child in the 1950s is never good. It's the prelude to a crayon masterpiece on the living room wall, or an unauthorized experiment involving the goldfish and a bottle of hand lotion. You shuffle in, arms already aching from scrubbing, folding, and picking up the same set of blocks for the 12th time. You rescue the baby, intervene in the goldfish heist, and return to the kitchen to glare at your stubborn casserole. The recipe promised bubbly, golden perfection in 45 minutes. You're on minute 62, and it's still paler than your husband's idea of seasoning. The fatigue creeps in, not the dramatic fainting kind from old movies, but the steady, bone-deep exhaustion that seeps into your joints and behind your eyes. You lean against the counter, contemplating a cup of coffee, but the mere thought of its weak, lukewarm bitterness is enough to turn you off. Besides, the coffee pot is already full of grounds and despair. No, you have a better solution. You open the cabinet above the fridge, where the important things are kept: extra birthday candles, a rationed stash of real chocolate, and your little orange bottle. Mother's Little Helper, the magazines coyly call it, as if she were a friend who only comes to visit when things are truly dire. You shake out a single pill, swallow it with a glass of tap water, and within moments the world begins to soften around the edges, like sunlight filtered through a clean linen curtain. The casserole is still stubborn, the laundry pile has not shrunk, and your children are now staging a coup in the hallway with a fleet of overturned toy trucks. But suddenly it all feels manageable. You find yourself humming a tune from the radio, the one with the jingle about floor wax that shines with pride. There is still too much to do, but the sense of impending doom has faded to a dull, ignorable hum. With your spirit gently buoyed, you embark on round 2 of your daily chores. You attack the laundry with renewed vigour, folding shirts and sorting socks into mismatched pairs, comforted by the knowledge that no one in your house will notice or care if they wear stripes with polka dots. You sweep up crumbs that reappear seconds later, wipe a mystery stain from the counter, and try to remember the last time you finished a single task before being pulled away by a fresh disaster. As the pill takes full effect, your patience stretches to superhuman lengths. A shrieking child? You respond with the patience of a Zen master. Another spill? You mop it up as if spills were simply a form of domestic jazz. Even the casserole, which has finally achieved a colour that could charitably be described as toasted, no longer seems like an adversary, but just another quirky companion on your journey. In the golden, tranquil haze of chemical serenity, you realise that the real victory isn't about conquering the day, it's about surviving it, one prescription, one casserole, one deep breath at a time. The children's laughter and squabbles recede to background noise, and your mind finds a patch of quiet. You look around your imperfect, slightly chaotic home and think, this is enough. The 1950s midday slump may be relentless, but so are you. And with a little pharmaceutical assistance, you've made it past noon with your smile, your sanity, and your casserole mostly intact. You serve sandwiches and jello salad with a grin, ignoring the existential crisis bubbling beneath the mayonnaise. Lunch is less about nutrition and more about keeping the peace, both externally and internally. It's high noon in the kitchen, sunbeams pooling on the vinyl floor, a radio jingle chirping about the wonders of instant pudding, and you standing at the helm with an arsenal of lunch meats, condiments, and tranquil resolve. The bread is soft, the ham is suspiciously glossy, and the American cheese slices are so uniform they could double as roof tiles in a pinch. The air smells faintly of pickles, floor wax, and hope. The children arrive, boisterous and already sticky from a morning of backyard negotiations involving earthworms and who gets the biggest swing. They collapse at the table, each presenting their specific demands. No crusts, extra mayo, jello but only the red bits. You nod, slicing, spreading and assembling sandwiches with the precision of a short-order cook and the patience of a saint, your smile never faltering, even as someone's elbow lands in the margarine for the third time this week. The pièce de résistance is, as always, the jello salad, a quivering masterpiece of shredded carrots, canned pineapple, and a single maraschino cherry floating like a buoy in a wobbly sea. You're not sure when gelatin became the symbol of domestic perfection, but here you are, pretending it's a treat and not an edible dare. As you hand out plates, you overhear the children's lunchtime diplomacy, trading carrot sticks for potato chips, launching peas with spoons, and debating the merits of bologna versus ham. The dog, always optimistic, hovers beneath the table, ready to pounce on any fragment that hits the floor. Through it all, you keep your composure. Your secret? You've already taken today's mood manager, courtesy of Dr. Thompson, and its calming effect turns even the most frenzied lunchroom into something that feels vaguely manageable, like refereeing a soccer match with all the players wearing oven mitts. Your husband calls from the other room, asking if you've seen his blue tie or, more likely, his will to live. You answer in your sunniest tone and present him with a plate, arranging the sandwich at a 45-degree angle for maximum visual appeal. He accepts it with a distracted nod, reading the newspaper and muttering about world affairs, blissfully unaware that his emotional stability is riding on the flawless ratio of mustard to ham. Lunch becomes an intricate performance. You swap jokes with the kids, mediate a dispute over a slightly dented apple, and make a mental note to ask the grocer about the mystery meat's country of origin. Assuming country isn't code for experimental government project. Every so often, you find yourself staring into the swirling depths of the mayonnaise jar, contemplating the universe, but you catch yourself and redirect your thoughts to more pressing matters, like whether anyone will notice if you serve the same sandwiches for dinner. The meal passes in a blur of laughter, squabbles and gentle reminders to chew with mouths closed. Plates are cleared, crumbs swept, and the jello remains largely untouched, except by the dog, who claims the cherry in a daring act of tableside thievery. The children disperse, tumbling outside to continue their conquests, and your husband retreats to the living room, trailing newspaper sections like breadcrumbs. You sit for a moment in the quiet, the kitchen still vibrating with the aftershocks of chaos. The lunch you've just served may not win any awards for nutrition, But you realize it's not really about food. It's about the fragile armistice you brokered between hunger, boredom, and whatever mysterious feelings lie beneath the surface of a 1950s afternoon. You've kept the peace, managed the moods, and held the line, all with a dollop of mayonnaise, a steady hand, and just enough help from modern medicine. You clear the last glass, savour the silence, and take a breath. Another meal, another victory, served with a smile, a side of jello, and the unspoken knowledge that, for today at least, you've kept everyone, including yourself, from falling apart. The world grows quiet as the kids disappear to school and the husband to work. You wander from room to room, dusting and organising, humming to yourself and counting the hours until another adult voice graces your linoleum kingdom. The silence after lunch settles in, thick as whipped cream and twice as heavy. Gone is the shrieking laughter, the thundering of small feet, the endless parade of requests for snacks and bandages. In their place, you're left with the muted hum of the refrigerator and the distant, hopeful chirp of a radio ad for a new kind of spray starch. The living room, recently ground zero for a peanut butter and jelly skirmish, is now eerily tidy. So spotless, in fact, that it feels almost hostile, like a museum exhibit labelled Typical American Family 1955. You adjust the cushions just for something to do and run your hand over the freshly dusted mantel. Your reflection stares back from a picture frame, hair perfectly curled, smile fixed in that subtle, practiced arc. The ticking clock above the television seems louder in the emptiness, keeping time for no one but you. Outside, your neighbour's car pulls away with a familiar crunch of gravel, and you watch her go, waving out of habit even though she can't see you through the curtains. You wonder what her afternoons look like, if she's also pacing her halls, pausing by the window to check for the mailman, inventing tasks just to fill the endless, echoing space between noon and dinner. You move through your chores like a royal on a lonely parade, dusting the baseboards, refolding towels, straightening the stack of Good Housekeeping magazines until the spines line up in perfect order. You catch yourself talking to the houseplants, asking them if they'd like more water or less sun. In another era, this might have been called eccentric. Here it's just another afternoon in paradise. Sometimes you sit on the edge of the bed, letting your hands rest in your lap, listening to the faint sound of a distant lawnmower or a dog barking down the street. You imagine calling a friend just to hear a grown-up voice, to confirm that the world is still out there, but you hesitate, worried you'll sound desperate, or worse, bored. You recall the advice columns, busy hands, happy hearts. But sometimes, no amount of busy work can drown out the ache of solitude. On the loneliest afternoons, even the sunlight feels suspicious, angling in through the window like a spotlight on your underachievement. You pour a glass of lemonade and sip it slowly, flipping through a magazine article about 10 ways to please your husband. You contemplate number 6, meet him at the door with a cheerful smile, and wonder how much cheerfulness you can store up before it leaks out your ears. You tidy the children's rooms, setting their toys in orderly rows. You lay out clothes for tomorrow, the ritual comforting in its predictability. Every so often, you pause to listen, half hoping for the sound of the phone ringing, a neighbour knocking, or anyone else who might pierce the afternoon hush. By 3 o'clock you're restless, the loneliness as heavy as a lead apron at the dentist. You check the clock again, then the window, scanning for the first flash of a school bus rounding the corner or the return of your husband's car. When the time finally comes, when the house bursts back to life with chatter, clatter and chaos, you're almost giddy with relief, grateful for the noise, the mess and even the squabbles. But for now you are the lonely queen of the ranch house, reigning over a kingdom of silence and sunbeams, of perfectly folded linens and echoes. The world may think your life is easy, but you know better. Behind every sparkling window and spotless floor is a woman who has learned to befriend her own company and to make a little peace with the quiet. And as you tuck the last corner of a sheet, you remind yourself that sometimes survival isn't about endurance or perfection. It's about waiting out the long, quiet hours until the world returns, noisy, demanding, and impossibly dear. Nestled between the violets and the dish soap, your little orange bottle stands guard. Its label promises serenity and social acceptability, making it both the most practical and the most existentially troubling tool in your arsenal. At first glance, it's just another everyday object in your kitchen's carefully curated landscape, a small, nondescript container camouflaged by the cheery chaos of aproned domesticity. The violets bloom with studious optimism beside the window, and sunlight catches on the translucent orange plastic, casting a gentle amber glow onto the porcelain sink. Only you, and perhaps every other housewife on your block, know that this is the real nerve centre of the entire house. There's a certain ritual to it. Mid-afternoon arrives, the hour when the postman's footsteps fade and the neighbours have all retreated behind their blinds. You pause at the windowsill, pretending to inspect the leaves for aphids, but really your hand moves almost unconsciously toward that little bottle. You open the childproof cap with a practiced twist, the sound nearly as familiar as the clink of silverware or the creak of the back door. Inside, tiny chalky tablets, neatly arranged like the world's least fun box of candy hearts. Each one a promise, a softening of worry, a blurring of sharp edges, a quieting of the relentless hum that lives just beneath your skin. Sometimes you catch yourself staring at the label, reading and rereading the dosage instructions, half expecting to find some secret code. Take one as needed for social composure. Take 2 if the PTA is coming over. Take 3 if your mother-in-law has decided to extend her visit. You know the drill. Dr. Thompson handed it over with a smile, the same smile he probably gives every weary housewife, his pen moving briskly as he asked how you'd been sleeping lately. Perfectly safe, he said. Just something to help you keep up with the demands of modern living. He never mentioned the demands themselves might be the problem. Still, you comply. You pop a pill, chasing it with a sip of tap water. It slides down easily, leaving no aftertaste, no guilt, at least not right away. The tension in your shoulders loosens a little. Your breath slows. The to-do list on the counter, previously a manifest of doom, now seems almost manageable, like a puzzle you could solve if you just took your time. You wash another dish. You hum along to the radio. You feel yourself return to the normal you're expected to be, cheerful, accommodating, only slightly frayed around the edges. But as you dry your hands and return the pillbox to its post, a question always hovers, unspeakable and persistent. Are you coping or simply numbing out? Are you winning at this game or just playing by someone else's rules with a pharmaceutical handicap? You remember how your mother managed without tranquilizers, with just a hard jaw and an even harder cup of black coffee. You wonder if she was stronger or simply less honest about how badly she wanted an escape hatch some days. Outside, a car passes, the world moving briskly along, blissfully unaware of your silent sentinel by the window. You picture your neighbours, all with their own pillboxes, their own silent bargains with modernity, their own private calculations of what it takes to be pleasant, patient, and perfectly content. You're not alone. The commercials say so, the magazines say so, but the quiet ache in your chest suggests otherwise sometimes. By dinner time, the sun slants low and golden, throwing long shadows across the kitchen. The pillbox catches the last light, a tiny lighthouse for all your emotional shipwrecks. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again, tending the violets, scrubbing the sink, and counting out serenity one small tablet at a time. No one will ask how you manage. They'll just admire your poise, your polish, and the perfect peaceful order of your suburban kingdom, and you'll smile, grateful, guilty, a little bit numb, but mostly relieved to have one tool that really works, even if no one ever talks about it out loud. Women's magazines pile up on the coffee table, promising perfect marriages, perfect soufflés, and perfect peace of mind. You study them like sacred texts, searching for the elusive secret to permanent contentment besides what's in the pillbox. They arrive each month in glossy stacks, their covers shimmering with impossibly cheerful housewives and headlines that shout, 10 tips for a more loving husband. Banish dust with this one simple trick. You two can bake a cake he'll never forget. The women on the front always look like they've never known a frizzy hair day, let alone a marital spat, and their kitchens gleam with a light that must be powered by pure optimism. You settle into your armchair, feet tucked under a crocheted afghan, and open the latest edition with the same sense of anticipation and dread you reserve for annual physicals and Tupperware parties. The first article is a photo spread, spring cleaning your way to happiness. It's page after page of pastel rooms and smiling women brandishing feather dusters as if they're conducting symphonies, not waging war on grime. You glance up at your own living room, where last week's laundry still loiters on a chair, and someone's sticky handprint decorates the TV stand, and wonder if there's a footnote for homes with actual children. You read on. Breakfast in bed, a marital miracle. According to the author, a tray of grapefruit halves and toast is all it takes to reignite romance. You wonder if the secret ingredient is actually patience, or just the ability to keep crumbs out of the sheets. The advice columns are a special brand of mythology. Dear Doris Field's letters from women whose husbands forget anniversaries, whose children track mud through the house, whose friends have the nerve to show up unannounced. The answer is always the same. Try harder, smile more, buy a new shade of lipstick and pretend everything is fine. If that doesn't work, reorganize your linen closet. No problem is so dire it can't be solved with a little more effort and the right beauty product. You flip to the recipes, page after page of perfect pies, dazzling salads suspended in neon jello, and dinner roasts that glisten like jewels. The instructions seem simple enough, but the photos mock you from the page. Look how easy it is. Why aren't you doing better? You scribble a shopping list, resolve to try again, and tuck the magazine back into the pile, only to forget it completely by the time dinner rolls around and you're faced with the existential horror of meatloaf once more. Interspersed with the recipes and cleaning tips are advertisements for soaps that promise to make your hands as soft as your conscience, girdles that will reshape your entire existence, and of course, medications to keep your nerves ladylike and lovely. You marvel at the confidence with which these pages offer reassurance. Sad, overwhelmed, failing to live up to the promise of having it all? Don't worry, the solution can be ordered by mail. Every now and then an article on self-care slips through, wrapped in 1,000 caveats. Take a moment for yourself after the children are asleep, the dishes are done, and your husband's slippers are warmed by the fire. You wonder if anyone ever makes it to that mythical moment before falling asleep upright on the couch, a half-read magazine slipping from their fingers. But you keep reading, flipping through each issue, clinging to the hope that next month's advice will finally unlock the secret of perpetual cheerfulness, that you too can become the woman in the picture, smiling with genuine peace instead of calculated composure. Eventually you stack the magazines in careful piles, dust the coffee table, and glance over at your pillbox on the windowsill. The magazines promised you happiness, if only you keep trying, keep smiling, keep improving. In the meantime, you settle for looking happy, a little more polished, and a little more practiced with each passing month. Because in 1950s suburbia, it's not about being happy, it's about making sure you look the part, at least until next month's issue lands on your doorstep and the cycle starts all over again. Your GP, always smiling and always male, dispenses advice and tranquilizers in equal measure. He assures you that feeling overwhelmed is perfectly normal and easily fixed with a quick scribble and a nod. The appointment is always the same, a sterile room, the faint aroma of rubbing alcohol and lavender powder, and your doctor, Dr. Thompson, exuding paternal confidence behind a desk that's suspiciously free of paperwork. He greets you like an old family friend, his handshake firm, his hair parted with the kind of precision that suggests he's never once been late to dinner. You sit on the paper-lined exam table, listing your symptoms, tiredness, trouble sleeping, nerves acting up. Maybe you mention the occasional weepiness, the headaches, or that mysterious hollowness that creeps in during quiet afternoons. Dr. Thompson nods with practiced concern. Perfectly normal, he says, all part of the modern woman's life. He never asks about your days, about the laundry or the endless cycle of dirty dishes, or the way the silence echoes after the children leave for school. Instead, he checks your pulse, taps your knee with a rubber hammer, and scribbles on his prescription pad with a flourish worthy of an artist signing a masterpiece. You'll leave with a fresh bottle of tranquilizers, something to take the edge off, to smooth your mood and restore that elusive glow of contentment. A little helper, just for you, prescribed by the one authority no one questions. You almost feel grateful as you leave the office. After all, Dr. Thompson is the expert. The magazines say so, the advertisements say so, and even your mother-in-law, who distrusts anything invented after 1930, admits he's very progressive. You cradle the prescription in your purse like a ticket to normalcy. If only it were that simple. Back home, you fill the prescription at the corner pharmacy, where the druggist slides the bottle into a discreet paper bag. He doesn't meet your eyes, but offers a knowing smile, a little secret shared by every woman in the neighborhood. You wonder how many pill bottles line the windowsills of houses just like yours, all prescribed by men who have never felt the particular, exhausting ache of being everything to everyone and nothing to yourself. When the pill takes effect, it's as if your life has been softly padded. The sharpness of anxiety dulls, the fatigue grows less heavy, and the vague ache of dissatisfaction is replaced by a pleasant, almost weightless calm. The kids' arguments become background noise. The laundry is less of a Sisyphean task, more of a gentle routine. Your husband's late hours, your neighbour's endless bragging, your own secret restlessness, all of it fades to a distant hum. You can almost believe for a moment that everything is fine, but sometimes the calm is too complete. You find yourself staring out the window, watching the world go by, and wondering if Dr. Thompson has ever sat in a spotless kitchen at 2 p.m, with nothing but the sound of the refrigerator for company. If he's ever understood the isolation that seeps in, the longing for something that doesn't come in a bottle or with a stamp of medical approval. When you do bring up the emptiness, the dreams that won't leave you alone, he smiles his best reassuring smile. You just need more rest, he says. Try not to worry. Let the medicine do its job. You nod, because that's what women do. You listen, you thank him, you follow orders. You're compliant, composed, chemically content. In the world of 1950s medicine, that's considered a cure. And so, the cycle continues. The prescription pad is always full. The doctor always knows best. You go home to your perfectly managed life, holding your peace and your prescription in equal measure, quietly wondering if anyone will ever ask how you really feel, or if, in this new world of science and serenity, that's even allowed anymore. The school bus screeches, and the house erupts with voices, shoes, and flying lunchboxes. You handle it all with composure that borders on supernatural, as if wrangling 2 hyped-up gremlins is just another line on your daily checklist. The quiet kingdom you've ruled all afternoon is shattered in a single instant. Backpacks hit the floor like sacks of cement. The dog goes berserk in a fit of joyous barking, and a tidal wave of noise rolls through every room. Someone is already yelling about missing mittens. Someone else is teetering on the edge of tears because a classmate cheated at Foursquare, and you haven't even closed the front door yet. In the chaos, you take attendance, quickly, mentally. 2 kids, 1 neighbour's kid, and a trail of muddy footprints that says the back gate was involved. There are shoes in the kitchen, a raincoat on the lamp, and a mysterious science project leaking onto your best table runner. You survey the scene with the calm detachment of a veteran field marshal, clipboard invisible but ever present. You have your systems, honed by necessity. Homework folders are handed out, snacks dispensed like rations in a cheerful POW camp. Sliced apples, a stack of saltines, and maybe, if you're feeling magnanimous, 2 cookies each. Someone protests, but you silence dissent with a look, the same look that has kept peace through flu seasons, sibling rivalries, and the great goldfish escape of 53. Every question is lobbed your way at once. Where are my crayons? Did you sign my permission slip? Can I have $3 for the book fare? Why did you put raisins in my lunch again? You answer in the same even tone, a one-woman switchboard connecting every request to the correct, if not always satisfying response. If you start to feel your own nerves fraying, you remind yourself that you have backup, 1 little pill tucked in the cabinet just in case. But mostly you focus on the choreography, keeping them moving, keeping the squabbles short, the tears from gathering critical mass. You referee arguments about who gets to watch TV first, who gets the blue cup, who stole whose last gumdrop. The kitchen is suddenly the world's smallest United Nations, with you presiding over treaties and trade negotiations that would make Eisenhower sweat. Homework time comes next. There's a brief, desperate scramble for pencils. How do they disappear so quickly? Followed by the usual chorus of "I can't do this," and "But my teacher said," you offer encouragement, gentle reminders, and, when necessary, the promise of an after-dinner treat. The secret to surviving this hour isn't math skills or grammar expertise, it's patience, and maybe just a little bit of controlled dissociation. Meanwhile, the phone rings. It's another mum confirming a carpool or warning you about a new outbreak of chickenpox. You field the call while simultaneously preventing a juicebox catastrophe and intercepting a sibling slap fight before it escalates into full-blown war. Your ability to multitask has reached Olympic levels, but the medals sadly are imaginary. By the time your husband returns, the after-school storm has lost most of its energy. The kitchen is a battlefield, but the worst is over. Homework is mostly finished, snacks are mostly eaten, and only minor emotional injuries have been sustained. You greet your husband with a smile that says, "I survived," and he looks around with something like awe, or perhaps it's fear. As you usher everyone to the dinner table, you realize that this too is part of the rhythm of life in 1955. The peace, the noise, the mess, the recovery. Every day you pull it all together with nothing but your wits, your systems, and just a little pharmaceutical support. It's not always graceful, but it's yours. And as bedtime draws near, you know that tomorrow the whole routine will start again. Another screech of the bus, another flood of shoes, another hour of orchestrated chaos. And you'll meet it, as always, with your practiced calm, your tired smile, and a resilience worthy of legend. The neighbours emerge, each with their own version of the same smile, each pretending their grass is greener, their kids are quieter, and their medicine cabinets are only for emergencies. It's late afternoon, and the whole neighbourhood stirs to life as if on cue. Garage doors creak open, sprinklers hiss in unison, and Mrs. Callahan next door shuffles outside to trim her roses for the 3rd time this week. You pause in your own front yard, watering can in hand, and exchange greetings with the practiced, polite enthusiasm of 2 diplomats at a trade summit. Her smile is immaculate, her lipstick a shade of red not found in nature, and you wonder which brand of serenity is working behind those cat-eye glasses today. Across the street, Mr. Ferguson wrestles with his lawnmower, sweat beading at his temples but his wave cheerful and strong. The Ferguson children tumble out behind him, miraculously clean, matching outfits pressed to an almost military degree. My little angels, Mrs. Ferguson trills, and you marvel at her restraint as one of the angels smacks the other with a badminton racket behind her back. You pretend not to see, and she pretends not to notice your own youngest making mud pies in the flower beds. You trade neighbourhood news in casual clipped sentences. Did you hear the Wilsons are repainting their shutters? I hear the Anderson boy made honour roll again. Martha down the block started a new book club, only classics this time. Each pronouncement is delivered with a knowing nod, the subtext thick as the hedge separating your yards. It's a sport, half community, half competition. Who has the tidiest hedges, the best behaved children, the most impressive jello mould? Whose kitchen window glows with the warmest, most inviting light as evening falls? You catch snippets of gossip drifting on the breeze, as the Joneses argue softly about bills, the Miller twins shriek with laughter in their plastic pool, and old Mister. Nelson peers out from behind his curtains, ever the vigilant sentry. Everyone's watching, and everyone knows it. In this suburban theatre, privacy is a myth, and secrets travel faster than the ice cream truck on a July afternoon. There's comfort in the ritual, the afternoon wave, the exchanged recipes, the mutual admiration for backyard tomato crops. But there's also a silent pressure, a tacit agreement to keep up appearances no matter what. Your neighbour's grass may not actually be greener, but you'd never admit it out loud. You glance over your own fence, checking for dandelions and stray toys, then cast a quick conspiratorial look at your pillbox on the windowsill. Everyone is playing the same game, you realise, and everyone's got their own toolkit for making it through the day. Children's laughter echoes, punctuated by the occasional shriek that's quickly muffled by a mother's gentle scolding. Cars glide slowly down the street. The postman waves, and for a few minutes the world feels like a Norman Rockwell painting, if you ignore the anxious glances and the thinly veiled comparisons hiding behind every compliment. Mrs. Callahan admires your roses and you return the favour, each of you cataloguing the other's imperfections while outwardly radiating goodwill. As the sun begins to set and the neighbourhood slowly retreats indoors, you take one last look around. The fences are straight. The lawns are mowed. The smiles are bright. Beneath it all, you know everyone is just barely holding it together, clutching their own little lifelines, whether it's prayer, pills, or an extra scoop of ice cream after dinner. You close the door behind you, grateful for the momentary solidarity that comes from knowing everyone else is also just pretending, also just doing their best to look perfect from the street. Behind every picture window is a different version of the same story, quiet anxieties, secret hopes, and a longing to belong. You put down your watering can, turn off the porch light, and settle back into your home, ready to play again tomorrow, judged, judging, and gently surviving, one manicured lawn at a time. Mountains of linens tumble from the washing machine, and you fold them with a focus that would make Marie Kondo jealous. Each neatly stacked towel is a small triumph over chaos, and possibly over your own sense of self. The laundry room is both battleground and sanctuary. It smells faintly of bleach, sun-dried cotton, and the subtle whiff of defeat. You close the door behind you, briefly savouring the hush, the way the sound of the dryer spinning drowns out the calls for snacks and the distant shriek of sibling diplomacy breaking down in the hallway. Here, amid the tangles of socks and the endless parade of pillowcases, you can pretend for a few minutes that the world is tidy and manageable, your control measured in crisp hospital corners and artfully rolled washcloths. You work methodically, folding and stacking with a practiced rhythm, snap, fold, smooth, repeat. Every item is a tiny monument to order. That shirt with the unbudging spaghetti stain, tucked discreetly at the bottom of the pile, as if invisibility were the first step to redemption. Those towels with the mysterious grey splotches, fluffed and folded into anonymity, their secrets safe in your linen closet. There's something deeply meditative about this repetitive domestic choreography. As long as the piles are shrinking, you can ignore the existential panic that sometimes lurks behind the rinse cycle. The radio is your only companion, chirping out cheerful jingles about detergents that fight stubborn stains and make whites whiter. You are your husband's socks, once white, now a shade best described as regretful oatmeal, and suppress the urge to write a strongly worded letter to the soap company. The magazines promised spotless laundry and radiant smiles, but they didn't mention what to do when someone's red sweater sneaks into the white load, or when your only solace is that at least everyone in the house is equally rumpled. As the afternoon wanes, you tackle the Everest of fitted sheets, wrestling corners with a determination that would impress even the most seasoned prizefighter. Folding a fitted sheet is less an act of housekeeping and more an existential riddle. You mutter encouragement to yourself, promising that next time you'll master the technique, even though you both know you'll be balling it up and stuffing it in the back of the closet before the week is out. Each freshly folded stack is more than a household victory. It's proof of perseverance, of quiet heroism in the face of never-ending cycles. In some ways, you suspect it's also a test, a silent measure of your worthiness as a wife, a mother, a cog in the well-oiled machine of suburbia. You wonder, as you pair up socks, always one short, always mocking you, if other women find themselves having quiet existential crises between starching pillowcases and ironing tablecloths. Do they too feel a fleeting sense of accomplishment as they conquer a pile of pyjamas, only for the next load to clang impatiently in the dryer? Occasionally you fantasize about a life with less laundry, perhaps on a tropical island, or as a wildly eccentric artist whose only clothing requirement is a dramatic robe and the occasional scarf. But the dream fades quickly, washed away in a tide of school uniforms and gym shorts. When you're done, you carry the neat stacks through the house, distributing them like gifts from a benevolent spirit. No one notices, of course, that the towels are fluffier, or that the socks are almost all accounted for, but you do. You pause in the hallway, hands full of clean linen, and give yourself a silent gold star for surviving yet another round. In a world where so much unravels, you've folded a little corner of calm into every drawer. The lies are harmless, just slightly brighter whites, slightly more peace, and the secret knowledge that you're holding everything together, one spin cycle at a time. As you marinate, simmer and broil, the kitchen fills with the comforting aroma of dinner and the faint medicinal scent of denial. You find peace in repetition, even as you secretly wonder if everyone else is also using Mother's Little Helper. There's something ritualistic about the hour before dinner. The sunlight grows slanted and golden across the counter as you lay out your ingredients with the reverence of a priestess preparing for a sacred rite. You consult the recipe card, handwritten, splattered with sauce and ambition, then set to work. Onions to be chopped, potatoes to be peeled, mystery meat to be disguised with a judicious application of ketchup and Worcestershire sauce. Each movement is precise, almost meditative, your hands acting of their own accord. The radio hums in the background, alternating between upbeat music and advertisements, promising a brighter tomorrow through better living. If only better living came with less peeling. You're on autopilot, measuring, stirring and tasting, all the while maintaining a serene exterior. But internally you're waging a quiet culinary war. Will the casserole brown this time? Or will it emerge from the oven looking as pale and uncertain as a debutante at her first cotillion? Will the children protest the inclusion of peas? Will your husband mention that the Smith's meatloaf tasted just a bit different last weekend? There's comfort in the repetition. Chop, sauté, season, repeat. A rhythm that soothes the nerves even as it leaves your mind free to wander. The kitchen is your sanctuary, but also your stage. The kids drift in, drawn by the promise of dessert, hovering like tiny, sticky critics. "What's for dinner?" they ask, suspicious, noses wrinkled. You offer vague, soothing answers. Something special, a surprise, whatever was on sale. You deftly redirect their curiosity with a spoonful of sauce and the suggestion that they go set the table. Sometimes you catch their expressions in the chrome of the toaster, miniature mirrors reflecting your own carefully controlled anticipation. Every so often, you pause and lean against the counter, letting the aroma of roasting chicken or bubbling stew wrap around you like a blanket. There's a faint tang beneath the comfort, the sharp, familiar scent of that little orange pill you took with a glass of water just before the carrots hit the cutting board. You know the drill, and you're fairly certain you're not alone. Somewhere across the street, Mrs. Callahan is probably humming the same old tune, whisking gravy and swallowing a helper of her own. You sneak a look out the window, spying other kitchen windows glowing against the dusk. It's easy to imagine all the women just like you, cooking and coping, stirring their hopes and disappointments into the evening meal. Maybe they're also wondering if there's more to life than perfectly crisped pork chops, or if the act of feeding a family is as close to fulfillment as anyone gets in this neck of the woods. The meal begins to take shape. You set the table, wipe a streak of flour from your cheek, and arrange the food with care, a still life of resilience, optimism, and desperate improvisation. You take pride in the arrangement, even if you know the kids will eat around the vegetables and your husband will finish his plate with the steady satisfaction of a man who has never once peeled a potato. As the family gathers, you light a candle, more for the illusion of ambience than for actual mood. Everyone sits, hungry and oblivious to the hours you've spent making this production look effortless. There's chatter, laughter, even a compliment or two. It's not gourmet, but it's hot, filling, and proof that you've survived another day. As the first forkfuls disappear, you savour a rare moment of peace. Maybe dinner is a placebo, a ritual to convince yourself that, with enough effort, everything can be made palatable. Maybe it's just food. Either way, it's enough. And if tomorrow's dinner is a little burned or a little bland, you'll handle that too, with a steady hand, a practiced smile, and just a little more help from modern medicine. The door creaks open, and in walks your husband, briefcase in hand, expecting dinner, children, and a wife who's always calm and never raises her voice. You oblige, presenting a picture of contentment straight from a pharmaceutical ad. He steps into the kitchen, shoes shining, hair neatly parted, and the day's burdens shrugged off with the practiced routine of someone who's been told their whole life that the real work ends at 5. He takes in the scene, children mostly quiet, the table set, dinner steaming, and you standing at the stove with a half-smile, half-internal monologue, wondering how you ended up as the anchor of this nightly performance. He kisses your cheek, an efficient peck that's more habit than affection, and asks, "How was your day?" You answer with the standard lines, "Busy, but good. Everyone's fine. Dinner will be ready in just a minute." It's not a lie exactly. After all, you're vertical, the children are alive, and the casserole, miracle of miracles, isn't burnt. Still, the reality hums just beneath the surface, smoothed over by your own secret little helper. Without it, you're not sure how much of this routine you could pull off without at least one mild outburst and a loud, involuntary sigh. He sits down, loosens his tie, and launches into a play-by-play of his day. There are meetings, memos, and office politics, all delivered in a tone that assumes your world is as orderly and logical as a flowchart. You nod in all the right places, set the salad bowl in front of him, and refill his glass before he even realizes it's empty. The children, sensing the shift in energy, perform their own version of after-dinner theatre, quiet enough to avoid notice, but noisy enough to make their presence felt. It's a balancing act. Your husband expects calm and control, the magazine ideal brought to life. The dinner table should be a refuge, not a war zone. The children should be polite, the food warm, and you, above all, should never let the day's chaos rise above a gentle anecdote. So you edit the truth, trimming the sharp edges from your stories and adding a cheerful garnish to each tale. The science project disaster becomes a funny anecdote. The spilled juice is a minor mishap. Your own fatigue is camouflaged behind a fresh coat of lipstick and the mild, steadying haze of pharmaceutical serenity. If he notices the cracks, your quick glances at the clock, the slight trembling in your hands, he never says so. Maybe he truly believes that this is all as effortless as it looks, or maybe he simply needs to believe it. He doesn't ask about the prescription bottle on the windowsill, or why the kitchen radio is always tuned to the station with the most cheerful music. In the world you share, these are small details, easily ignored. Dinner ends, plates are cleared, and you watch him settle into his armchair, newspaper open, children climbing onto his lap for exactly 5 minutes before being shooed away to finish their homework. You linger in the kitchen, listening to the muffled sounds of the television, the hum of contentment that never quite drowns out the thrum of exhaustion in your bones. This is the 6 o'clock showdown, an unspoken contest between the demands of perfection and the limits of reality. You meet it every evening with grace, with patience, and with a little help from your orange bottle of composure. The world outside might see a family at peace, a mother at ease, but you know the real victory is in making it look so easy. As the sun sets, you steal a moment by the window, breathing in the quiet and gathering your strength for bedtime routines. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again, smiling through, holding it together, and playing your part in the great suburban charade. Martinis clink and laughter floats through the house. The evening transitions seamlessly from pill-induced tranquility to gin-fueled optimism, with no one quite sure where one ends and the other begins. Cocktail hour in suburbia is both a tradition and a gentle escape. A soft landing at the end of a day defined by expectations and endless effort. The glasses come down from the high shelf, the ice tray cracks with a satisfying snap, and you arrange the olives in a cut glass bowl with the same attention you gave to the kids' lunches, only with a little more anticipation. The radio has switched from cheerful jingles to smooth jazz, and the lighting grows warm and forgiving, blurring the edges of the room and of reality. Your husband appears, tie loosened, hair mussed, and mood already lifting at the prospect of that first crisp sip. He moves with more ease than he did at 6, the day's troubles dissolving in the bottom of a tumbler. "Rough one?" you ask, pouring gin with a steady hand. He shrugs, already smiling. You pour yourself a drink too, just a splash, enough to join the ritual, not enough to lose your grip on the world. Or so you hope. The children sense the shift in the atmosphere and scatter to bedrooms and television screens, happy to leave the adults to their mysterious, forbidden fun. Sometimes you share the moment with neighbours, Mrs. Callahan gliding in with her signature laugh and a pitcher of whiskey sours, Mr. Ferguson booming stories about his lawn, everyone growing a little more animated, a little less formal, as the evening unfolds. The conversation meanders from local gossip to vacation plans, to gentle boasting about children and cocktail recipes, every word made smoother and brighter by the second round. For a while, it almost feels like a party. The worries of the day are set aside, laughter comes easier, and everyone is just a little more interesting, a little more interested, a little more alive. But beneath the surface, you're aware of the delicate balance, how the lines between relief and escape, between relaxation and avoidance, blur so quickly. You top up the drinks, smiling with the knowledge that this hour is equal parts celebration and coping mechanism. The drinks help, but they are never the whole story. The real lubricant of the evening is the sense of camaraderie, of being in it together, of knowing that everyone else is also just a bit tired, just a bit on edge, just a bit in need of something to soften the world's sharp corners. Maybe that's why the laughter feels so contagious, why the smallest jokes provoke the biggest reactions, why nobody mentions the little orange bottles tucked away in cabinets and purses. As the hour ticks on, you feel the warmth spreading through your limbs, the day's anxieties evaporating. You trade recipes, clink glasses, and let yourself believe for a few golden minutes that everything is as effortless as it seems. The house is filled with the low hum of contentment, the clatter of ice and glasses, the happy sigh of a day survived. Eventually dinner calls. The ritual winds down, guests gather their coats, and your husband retreats to his armchair, humming a tune you haven't heard in years. You collect the glasses, smiling at the lipstick rings and watermarks, a constellation of tiny, joyful, slightly blurry memories. Cocktail hour is over, but its effects linger, making the ordinary seem just a little more magical. You take a final look around the glowing living room, grateful for the simple alchemy of gin, good company, and the quiet solidarity of those who know exactly how much effort it takes to look and feel relaxed. You flip off the radio, dim the lights, and head for the kitchen. The world is a little softer, a little kinder, and you, shaken, stirred, and slightly sedated, are ready for whatever comes next. Getting the kids to sleep is a nightly negotiation that requires cunning, patience, and perhaps just a smidge of pharmaceutical assistance. You tuck them in, tell a story, and close the door on another day survived. The evening is stretched long and syrupy, bathwater puddles, stray socks in the hallway, one last burst of forbidden giggles as everyone feigns sleep. The bedtime ritual begins not with a command, but with a subtle campaign. Soft voices, dimmed lights, and the wafting scent of lavender powder sprinkled across pyjamas like fairy dust. The goal isn't just sleep, but surrender. The final blessed ceasefire in a day spent refereeing the squabbles and stampedes of childhood. First, there's the bath, a circus act starring your youngest and half the toy population of the Western Hemisphere. You manage to corral the chaos, towel them off, and wrangle everyone into pyjamas, all while fielding questions about dinosaurs, dreams, and why anyone would eat spinach on purpose. Toothbrushing is another diplomatic summit. Every child an ambassador with a different grievance about mint flavour, or the unfair distribution of cartoon character toothbrushes. Once corralled, you lead them toward bed, your voice a mix of lullaby and gentle ultimatum. There's always a flurry of last-minute requests, another sip of water, another trip to the bathroom, a vital confession about who started the trouble with the missing hamster. The oldest tries to bargain for 10 extra minutes of reading. The youngest launches a campaign for another bedtime story, batting eyelashes and clutching a teddy bear with expert precision. You stand your ground, mostly. Sometimes, a little extra time is surrendered for the sake of peace. Sometimes, you find yourself wedged on the edge of a twin bed, narrating the exploits of a heroic squirrel for the third night in a row, all the while eyeing the clock and wondering if anyone in history has ever gotten children to sleep on the first try. Patience, you remind yourself, is a virtue, one that, at this hour, is greatly enhanced by a certain little helper you took after dinner. With your nerves buffered and your voice even, you guide the bedtime process like a seasoned general marshalling her troops for one last manoeuvre. The lights go down, the blankets are tucked, and you settle in for the traditional question period. What happens if the moon falls out of the sky? Do ghosts eat sandwiches? Will you check the closet for monsters just one more time? One by one you answer, reassure and deploy every soothing phrase in your arsenal. You trace small circles on tiny foreheads, sing the off-key family lullaby, and promise that yes, you will be right down the hall, and yes, you will check on them before you go to bed. At last, the breathing evens out. The room grows quiet, save for the soft hum of a fan, and the occasional muttered word from a child half drifting into a dream. You stand in the doorway for a moment, savouring the silence. The day's battles are behind you, negotiated, endured, mostly won. You gather up stray blankets, tiptoe out and close the door with the care of someone defusing a very small, very precious bomb. In the quiet of the hallway, you let out a breath you didn't realise you'd been holding. There are dishes to wash and shoes to gather, but for now you allow yourself a small moment of triumph. Bedtime may never be perfect, but you've managed another night, another story, another round of herding hopes and wild children safely into sleep. As you head back toward the living room, toward your own soft chair, and the last quiet hour of the day, you smile. Tomorrow the battle will begin again, but tonight you have won, and the world is at peace, at least until morning. As you collapse onto the sofa, TV glow flickering in your eyes, you drift into the sitcom universe, where every problem is solved in 22 minutes, and nobody ever mentions the contents of their medicine cabinet. It's a ritual as soothing as warm milk. This end-of-day surrender to the gentle blue light of the living room television. The kids are finally in bed. Your husband is snoring gently in his armchair or reading the sports section with half an eye. And the house, for the first time all day, is quiet enough to hear the soft hum of the cathode ray tubes. You sigh, sinking deeper into the couch cushions, a fortress of throw pillows and fading resolve. The familiar theme songs play like lullabies for grown-ups, announcing a parade of smiling families and slapstick neighbours. You tune in for the laughs, laughter that comes easily, that isn't tinged with exhaustion or exasperation, that doesn't cost anything but a little attention and a bowl of popcorn. On the screen, Lucy sets off another scheme. Beaver gets in trouble, Donna Reed glides through spotless rooms, and even the worst misunderstandings are gently, inevitably put right before the credits roll. The world in the box is not your world, but it's close enough to feel reassuring. Kitchens are always tidy, children never sass back for more than a line or two, and marital squabbles are resolved with hugs instead of cold silences. The biggest crises, a burnt roast, a lost report card, a surprise visit from the boss, are conquered by pluck and charm, not by tranquilizers or desperate midnight phone calls to a sympathetic friend. You laugh along, letting yourself forget, if only for half an hour, that real-life solutions rarely come wrapped in neat punchlines. As the sitcoms blend into game shows and talk shows, your mind floats pleasantly. The worries of the day, the bills, the stains, the invisible, unending labour recede into the background. The television's steady glow casts soft shadows on the walls, painting your living room with silver linings. You're grateful for the way it fills the silence, smoothing the sharp edges of loneliness that sometimes linger even in a house that is never truly empty. You glance at your husband, whose gentle snoring harmonizes with the canned laughter. Occasionally he stirs and mumbles a comment about the show, but you both know he'll never remember the plot in the morning. Sometimes you envy the ease with which he drifts off, while your mind still turns over the day's events, replaying mistakes, tallying victories both small and invisible. You reach for the remote, thumb hovering over the dial, but let the next show play, content to let someone else's chaos entertain you for a while longer. On the screen, nobody mentions anxiety, or pills, or the lonely ache that sometimes grows in the space between dinner and bedtime. Nobody ever loses their cool on I Love Lucy, and even when things go sideways, they go sideways with style. In a world that asks so much of you, endless patience, relentless good cheer, a spotless house and a spotless reputation, there's something deeply healing in watching someone else's problems dissolve with nothing more than a hug and a clever quip. You let the laughter wash over you, a lullaby in monochrome, soothing and strangely hopeful. The commercials promise cleaner floors and brighter smiles, but for now, all you need is this moment, quiet, peaceful, and wrapped in the flickering assurance that, at least on television, everything will turn out just fine. Eventually you switch off the set, the room bathed in sudden darkness, your heart a little lighter. You head to bed with the last echoes of laughter in your ears, grateful for the simple magic of escapism and for a world where, at least tonight, you can fall asleep believing that happy endings really do come around every half hour. Late night whispers, a peck on the cheek, and the unspoken agreement that both of you are far too tired for anything more ambitious than synchronized snoring. The house has finally stilled, surrendering to the peace that only arrives when the last light is turned off and every small foot has been accounted for in bed. You and your husband brush shoulders in the bathroom, exchanging weary smiles in the fogged-up mirror. He fumbles with his toothbrush, you smooth cold cream over tired cheeks, and both of you silently negotiate who will get to spit first. This is intimacy in the trenches, shared toothpaste, overlapping bathrobes, and the comforting rhythm of nightly routine. You slip between the cool sheets, the linens freshly laundered thanks to your earlier heroics in the laundry room. There's a satisfying weight to the blankets, as if they understand how much they're being relied upon to muffle not just the cold, but the endless low thrum of daily anxiety. Your husband slides in beside you, book in hand, eyes already drooping as he reads the same sentence 3 times. You take up your own magazine, glancing at an article promising 10 new ways to rekindle romance. The irony is not lost on you as you struggle to keep your eyelids open past paragraph 2. Sometimes there's a brief, half-hearted attempt at affection, a foot touching beneath the covers, a murmured love you, or a gentle squeeze of the hand. The passion of younger days when staying up late meant actual adventure has faded into something more subtle and, dare you say it, sustainable. Now the greatest act of marital love is letting each other drift off without interruption, and maybe, if you're lucky, agreeing to take turns getting up for the next midnight child complaint or distant clatter in the kitchen. The dark holds no grand secrets or confessions, just a quiet gratitude that you're in this together. In the safety of your bedroom, the world shrinks to 2 people breathing in sync, counting the blessings that sometimes feel suspiciously like obligations. Health, home, family, the promise of another day to do it all over again. You remember when romance meant flowers and dramatic declarations, but here in the 1950s, romance is more often a shoulder rub after a long day, a cup of tea left warming on the nightstand, or not mentioning the burnt casserole from earlier. Your husband, already half asleep, mutters a joke about the honeymoon phase as he rolls onto his side, and you both laugh, softly, knowing that the honeymoon isn't gone, it's just been cleverly disguised as mutual respect and chronic exhaustion. There's comfort in the routine, in knowing that while the world outside demands smiles and perfection, here in the dark you can drop the act, yawn as loudly as you want, and trust that your partner will only tease you a little for it. The marriage counsellors in the magazines would probably call it complacency. You call it survival, and maybe even a little bit of happiness. Because there's a unique peace in having someone who understands your silences, your sighs, and the language of touch that says, "I'm still here," even when I'm too tired to say anything at all. You tuck yourself closer, finding that sweet spot between his warmth and your own claim on the pillow. The day's worries fade, replaced by the soft lull of breath and the gentle promise that, whatever else happens, you'll both be here in the morning, wrinkled, rumpled, and ready to face it all again. Synchronized snoring, you think, might not be glamorous, but in this season of life, it's as romantic as a serenade beneath the stars. And as you finally let yourself drift off, you realize that, for all the talk of marital bliss, sometimes the truest love story is written in the ordinary nights you simply survive together. Behind the closed door of a bathroom, whispers are exchanged about side effects, dosages, and the art of appearing fine at all times. The real support group meets not in meetings, but in moments of mutual pharmaceutical understanding. It starts at the afternoon bridge club, or maybe during a neighbourhood potluck, when someone excuses herself to powder her nose and moments later, 2 or 3 other women quietly follow. The powder room, pristine, softly lit, floral scented, is more than a place to check lipstick. It's a confessional booth, a war room, and a speakeasy all at once. Here, behind the safety of a locked door and the steady rush of running water, the masks come off. Or at least they slip a little. "Are you still taking the blue ones?" Marjorie asks, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial hush as she adjusts her pearls in the mirror. "No, they made me feel like I was floating," Ethel admits, dabbing her forehead with a tissue. "I switched to the little white ones last month. Less dizzy, but sometimes I forget words. My husband thinks it's adorable. The others laugh, a tight sound edged with relief. They pass compacts, swap glosses, and share their own tales of side effects, the dreamless sleep, the occasional fogginess, the bizarre craving for pickles at 3 a.m. It's not all complaints. Sometimes there's advice. Try taking it with tea instead of coffee, it goes down smoother. Ask for the prescription with the red label, it's covered by insurance. Don't tell your sister-in-law, she's still convinced vitamins are the answer to everything. These exchanges are quiet, efficient, and always wrapped in the unspoken understanding that nobody outside this circle can really know how hard it is to look so composed all the time. This is not the kind of support group you'd find in magazine articles or television specials. There are no name tags, no folding chairs, no tearful testimonials over styrofoam cups of weak coffee. Instead, there is camaraderie in the glance that lingers a second too long, in the gentle squeeze of a hand as someone admits, "Some days, I'm just too tired to care if the floor is clean." There is comfort in knowing you're not the only one who has ever stared into the medicine cabinet and wondered, "Is this normal? Am I?" The conversation always circles back to the performance of daily life, the practiced smiles, the cheerful tone, the relentless pursuit of happiness that everyone seems to manage, at least on the surface. "If anyone asks, I'm just tired," says one woman, tucking a bottle back into her purse with the practiced nonchalance of a magician. "Aren't we all?" comes the reply, and a wave of laughter breaks the tension, echoing off tile and porcelain. It's in these small, secret moments that the facade of perfection cracks just a little. The women let themselves be honest about their exhaustion, about their fears, about the persistent sense that the world expects too much for too little recognition. They don't linger too long. Someone flushes, someone sprays perfume, someone smooths her skirt and says, "Well, better get back before they notice we're gone." Back in the living room, the game resumes, the casseroles are checked, the children are corralled, and the illusion of effortless cheerfulness is restored. But a little comfort lingers, tucked safely away alongside the compact and the lipstick and the little orange bottle. A knowledge that they are not alone, that somewhere behind every perfect hostess and pristine powder room is a woman who understands. The real sisterhood is not in public declarations or shared recipes, but in the quiet solidarity of those who know how much effort it takes to look fine. And so, the door opens, the performance continues, and the secret is safe, at least until the next powder room confession. Commercial breaks promise a life free from worry, wrinkles and weeds, all for the low price of a prescription and a smile. You wonder if the smiling actresses are in on the joke, or just taking their own advice. You sit on the sofa, legs curled beneath you, the living room bathed in the pale glow of the television. As the sitcom family on screen wraps up their crisis with a group hug, the world shifts from fictional chaos to a parade of promises. Here comes the toothpaste that will make your children's smiles brighter, the detergent that turns the entire family into walking billboards for spotless living, and always the tranquil, beatific housewife, reclining on her couch as if the world's problems could be solved with a single swallow and a gentle sigh. Every commercial is a small performance, a gleaming kitchen, a sparkling bathroom. a backyard so lush and green it almost looks edible. The star of the show is always the woman who has it all: smooth skin, calm nerves, polite children, and a husband who beams at her over a plate of perfectly crisped chicken. It's hard not to laugh, just a little, when she explains to the camera how easy it is to be happy, as long as you use the right product and, of course, never raise your voice. But underneath the laughter is something else, a gentle ache, a hint of longing. The television promises more than a cleaner floor or whiter sheets. It promises that you too can be tranquil and adored as long as you follow the right steps. Step 1, buy this soap. Step 2, take this pill. Step 3, never let them see you sweat. By the end of the commercial break, the world feels shinier, smoother, and somehow more demanding than ever. You find yourself eyeing the cheerful actresses with suspicion. Are they really that serene? Or are they just better at hiding the cracks? You imagine them between takes, slipping off their high heels and rubbing at the pinch marks, trading stories about bad directors and crying children, and the kind of exhaustion that no amount of moisturizer can touch. Maybe, just maybe, their smiles are part real, part resignation, and part chemically assisted. There's a special kind of genius in the way these commercials blur the line between aspiration and expectation. Want to be the woman in the ad? Want to glide through your day with a smile and an unruffled blouse? It's easy. Just keep buying, keep smiling, and when all else fails, keep reaching for that little orange bottle. If you're not happy, it's not the system, it's you. Maybe you haven't found the right product yet. Maybe you haven't tried hard enough. Maybe you need to call your doctor for the new, improved formula. You lean back, the commercial jingle still echoing in your head, and realize that somewhere along the way, contentment became a commodity. Happiness isn't just an emotion, it's a product, packaged and sold in 30-second increments, as fleeting and artificial as the static on the TV screen. The commercials end, the show resumes, and the world shifts back to black and white comedy and laugh tracks. But the residue of those promises lingers. You glance at your own reflection in the TV glass, smiling, yes, but with a tiredness that no detergent will erase. You remind yourself that real life isn't measured in sparkling countertops or the tranquil ease of a perfectly cast actress. It's in the messy, complicated, noisy business of surviving the day, one imperfect moment at a time. Still, the fantasy is comforting. Maybe tomorrow you'll try the new cleanser, or pick up the cream with the extra promises, or schedule a refill at the pharmacy. Maybe the next commercial will finally deliver on the dream. But for tonight, you turn off the set, turn out the lights, and settle for your own brand of tranquility. The hard-earned, slightly messy, and deeply real kind that never makes it onto TV. One day, the bottle rattles empty. You stare at it, suddenly aware of how thin the line is between calm and chaos. Life without your chemical companion feels just a bit too real, a bit too sharp around the edges. It happens quietly, almost politely. You tip the bottle into your palm, expecting the familiar chalky reassurance, and instead you get nothing but plastic tapping against skin. No alarms, no dramatic music, just the soft, traitorous sound of emptiness. You shake it again, as if persistence might summon one last miracle tablet from the void. It does not. At first, you tell yourself it's fine. You'll call the doctor tomorrow, or the next day. You've handled worse, haven't you? You straighten the bottle on the windowsill, aligning it carefully beside the dish soap like nothing has changed. But something has changed. The world feels louder. The refrigerator hums too sharply. The ticking clock suddenly sounds like it's keeping score. By mid-morning, you notice the difference. Your patience feels thinner, stretched like cellophane over a bowl of leftover meatloaf. A spilled glass of milk sends a jolt through your chest. The radio announcer's voice grates instead of soothes. You catch yourself snapping, just a little, then quickly recovering, pasting the smile back on before anyone notices. This is what raw feels like, you realize. This is the unbuffered version of life. Your thoughts begin to wander places they haven't visited in a while. Not dramatic places, just honest ones. Why does every day feel exactly the same? Why does everyone else seem to manage so effortlessly? Why does the quiet feel heavier than the noise ever did? These questions don't spiral, they hover, persistent and inconvenient, like flies you can't quite swat away. You consider the logistics. The doctor's office won't be open until Tuesday. The pharmacy closes at 6. You calculate how many good hours you have left before the edge really sets in. You've done this math before, though you never admitted it out loud. You tell yourself to stay busy. Busy is safe. Busy doesn't think too much, so you clean. Again. You fold laundry that's already folded. You reorganize the pantry by height, then by label colour, then abandon the project halfway through because it suddenly feels pointless. The kids ask questions you don't have the energy to soften. Your husband asks how your day was, and for the first time in a long while, you hesitate before answering. The panic isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with tears or trembling hands. It's quieter than that. It's the fear of being seen, of someone noticing that the calm isn't natural, that the smile requires maintenance, that without a refill the whole operation might start to wobble. You imagine explaining it to the doctor. The words sound ridiculous even in your own head. I feel too much. I don't feel enough. I'm tired, but not sleepy. Calm, but only chemically. You wonder if he'll nod, scribble and fix it like always, or if he'll ask a question you don't know how to answer. By evening the edge has dulled slightly, not because things improved, but because you adjusted. Humans are adaptable that way. You lower your expectations. You breathe more carefully. You remind yourself that this is how it used to be, before the bottle. You survived then. You can survive now. Still, when you place the empty container back on the sill, you don't throw it away. Not yet. You keep it there, a placeholder, a promise, a reminder of how fragile calm can be and how much effort it takes to appear effortless. Tomorrow you'll make the call. Tomorrow you'll restore the balance. Tonight you sit with the quiet panic and let it pass through you. Uncomfortable, yes, but real. And in that uncomfortable stillness, you realize something unsettling and profound. You were never broken. You were just tired. In the silence after midnight, you ponder the woman in the mirror, her smile, her secrets, and the curious peace that comes from knowing you've survived another day in 1950s suburbia, one dose at a time. The house is finally, blessedly quiet. The ticking of the kitchen clock is the only thing marking time, each second stretching out longer than the last. You slip into the bathroom, the linoleum cool beneath your feet, and click on the light. Soft, yellow, merciful. In the mirror, your reflection stares back. Hair slightly mussed, mascara smudged. The edges of your smile a little less precise now that no one else is around to see. This is the moment you allow yourself honesty. You examine the day, every task performed, every smile deployed, every moment of calm, both real and manufactured. The pill bottle sits on the edge of the sink, sentinel and silent partner, the glass nearly empty. You run a finger around the rim and wonder, not for the first time, who you would be if you let the facade drop. If you faced the world without the chemical reassurance that everything is fine. It's a strange sort of intimacy, meeting your own gaze in the bathroom mirror after midnight. The day's small lies. I'm fine. It's nothing. Of course, I can manage. Echo in your head. Not accusations, but gentle reminders of the work required to move through this world. You see the lines near your eyes, the evidence of laughter and worry, and realize that, under the surface, you are stronger than you let yourself believe. Without the pill, would you cry more? Laugh more? rage at the endless cycle of chores and expectation, or feel more wonder at the sunlight streaming across the breakfast table? Would your patience fray at the edges, or would your heart crack open just wide enough to let a little more truth in? You think of the women you know, neighbours, friends, the ones who pass secret confessions in the powder room or offer advice about side effects in whispers. You wonder if they too have these moments. If they ask themselves where the boundary lies between coping and pretending, between resilience and numbness. You wonder if anyone really knows, or if everyone is just doing their best, inventing themselves one day at a time. In the quiet, your mind drifts backward to a time before the pill, before the pressure, before the endless magazine advice and the endless parade of commercials selling serenity in bottles. Was it easier then, or just different? Was the ache of living sharper, or was it simply more honest? You close your eyes and breathe deeply. The air smells of soap and powder, familiar and safe. You let the exhaustion wash over you, let the questions remain unanswered. Maybe that's the best anyone can do. Keep asking, keep searching, keep showing up, whether chemically supported or not. Before you turn off the light, you smile at your reflection. It's a softer smile, not the broad, practiced one you wear for the world, but a real one. It's the smile of someone who has survived, not just the day, but the expectations, the isolation, and the quiet doubts that creep in after midnight. It's the smile of someone who knows that the pill is a tool, not a crutch, and that beneath it all she is still herself, complicated, tired, hopeful. You leave the bathroom, the mirror dark behind you. The house is still, the night wide open, the future uncertain, but you have survived, and that is enough. Tomorrow you'll wake up and do it all again. Pill or no pill, you'll find a way. And somewhere in the deep of night, you let yourself believe. That's more than survival. That's strength. The folding chairs are cold, the coffee's burnt, and the conversation is a delicate ballet of veiled insults and forced cheer. Surrounded by mothers who all seem slightly too enthusiastic about bake sales, you smile, nod, and find solace in the knowledge that your calm exterior is only partially thanks to years of practice, and partially thanks to what's rattling in your purse. The PTA meeting convenes in the school cafeteria, a room that smells perpetually of boiled hot dogs and industrial disinfectant. You claim a seat near the back, strategically placing yourself close enough to appear involved, but far enough to avoid being drafted into anything that requires actual physical labour or public speaking. The other mothers cluster in small chirping knots, brandishing clipboards, recipe cards, and the kind of smiles usually reserved for visiting royalty or door-to-door missionaries. Mrs. Patterson, the reigning queen of the PTA, stands at the front of the room, clipboard in hand and pearls gleaming, calling the meeting to order with a gavel that's mostly ceremonial. The agenda is projected on a wheezing overhead, the items as predictable as the plot of a sitcom. Fundraising, field trips, who's bringing what to the next bake sale, and of course, the eternal debate about the colour of this year's Spirit Week banners. As the minutes crawl by, you sip burnt coffee from a styrofoam cup, pretending it doesn't taste like despair and powdered creamer. The conversation bounces from community engagement to snack guidelines, to the subtle politics of who gets to organise the spring carnival. Each suggestion is met with a chorus of, "Oh, that's wonderful," and "What a creative idea." You listen, half in and half out, nodding at appropriate intervals and resisting the urge to suggest a raffle for who gets to leave first. Somewhere in the middle of a heated discussion about whether cupcakes with blue frosting violate the district's new health initiative, you feel a pang of sympathy for the principal, who sits at the edge of the proceedings with the glazed look of a man contemplating a career change. Mrs. Davis, notorious for her cinnamon rolls and cutthroat approach to bake sale territory, quietly lobbies for the prime cafeteria table, while her rival, Mrs. Green, counters with a PowerPoint about equal cupcake representation. It's theatre, high stakes, low impact, and carried out with a kind of smiling ferocity that could only flourish in a room full of women who've spent years perfecting the art of polite combat. Underneath the laughter and applause, there are invisible lines drawn in the linoleum, alliances cemented with casseroles and side-eyes. You wonder how many others are coasting on a combination of willpower and whatever small prescription they keep tucked away for just such occasions. Your mind drifts, and your hand brushes the inside of your purse, feeling for the reassuring click of your pill bottle. You haven't needed it yet. Maybe it's the years of practice. Maybe it's the camaraderie of fellow mothers putting on the same well-rehearsed show, or maybe it's just the knowledge that you could excuse yourself to the restroom for a moment of peace if things get truly dire. Finally, after a contentious vote on the merits of glitter versus construction paper, the meeting adjourns. You rise, legs tingling, and join the exodus to the parking lot, exchanging parting pleasantries and promising to email your thoughts about the silent auction. Driving home, you let out a long breath, letting the smile fade. The cafeteria's fluorescent lights are replaced by the forgiving darkness of your car. You survived another PTA meeting, unscathed, mostly sane, and quietly proud that your calm held steady under the relentless pastel barrage of school politics. You glance at your purse, grateful for the tiny insurance policy rattling inside, and resolve to bring your own coffee next time, extra strong, with a side of secret solidarity for mothers everywhere. Tonight's dinner challenge: transform 6 cans, 3 boxes, and 1 questionable vegetable into a family favourite. As you stir a bubbling concoction of condensed soup and processed cheese, you marvel at your own ability to remain unflappable, even as the casserole wobbles like an existential crisis on a plate. The 1950s dinner table is an altar to ingenuity, and you, the high priestess, must conjure miracles from the pantry's mysterious depths. You survey your supplies: cream of mushroom, cream of celery, cream of chicken. Are there any creams left for the rest of the world? A box of elbow macaroni, stale saltines, and a bell pepper on the brink of surrender. It's a meal born not of inspiration, but of necessity, and the latest magazine's promise that family favourites start with what's on hand. You line up your cans like soldiers and begin the ritual. The can opener whirs, metal lids clatter, and your kitchen fills with the oddly comforting scent of salt, nostalgia, and just a hint of tin. You mix, you pour, you layer with the patience of a master bricklayer, each ingredient pressed into service in the ongoing war against hunger and complaints about vegetables. The children wander in, noses wrinkled, scanning the counters for clues about the meal's identity. You offer only a mysterious smile, part Mona Lisa, part poker player. "Is it macaroni night?" they ask. "Surprise," you answer, stirring bravely, hoping surprise is enough to distract them from the suspiciously beige nature of everything in the pot. The casserole, equal parts hope, sodium, and processed optimism, goes into the oven. You crush saltines with the steely resolve of a woman who knows the power of a good topping to conceal a multitude of sins. On the side, you throw together a salad, if salad can be defined as iceberg lettuce, 2 sad tomato slices, and whatever is left in the bottle of French dressing. There's a strange peace in the chaos. You hum along to the radio, letting your mind wander. What would Julia Child think? Would she be horrified or secretly impressed by your ability to make do? Maybe this is the real test of culinary courage, not soufflés or bœuf bourguignon, but holding your nerve as you slide a pan of questionable origins into the oven, smile unwavering, pulse steady, and not a single bead of sweat on your brow, thanks in part to a little calm borrowed from your windowsill prescription. Dinner is ready, and you call the family to the table with the cheeriest "let's eat" you can muster. The casserole emerges, golden and jiggly, promising comfort and perhaps a little existential reflection. You serve generous scoops, accepting your fate as both chef and social scientist. There will be reviews, face-pulling, polite bites, and, if you're lucky, a request for seconds from the least discerning child. Conversation at dinner is an art form. You guide it away from critiques of the food, what is this exactly, and towards safer ground, school news, plans for the weekend, the weather. You praise the casserole's complex flavours and surprising texture. You celebrate every empty plate and quietly ignore the pile of rejected bell pepper rings on the side. As the meal wraps up, you gather the empty dishes, scrape leftovers into Tupperware and field request for dessert. You survived another round of recipe roulette. Your composure unbroken, your smile intact, and your secret weapon still hidden in the medicine cabinet. In the end, no one remembers what was in the casserole, just that dinner was served, everyone was fed, and you held your ground. Maybe that's the greatest recipe of all, taking what you have, adding a dash of patience, a sprinkle of humour, and just enough calm to get through the night. In front of your closet, you debate between polka dots or paisley, all while wriggling into a girdle with the determination of a gymnast and the help of a little pharmaceutical courage. The final accessory isn't pearls or gloves, but the placid smile you put on before leaving the house, ready to face the neighbours and the next round of comparison. The closet is a battlefield, and you, its reluctant general, survey the troops, house dresses, day dresses, the nice dress for church, and the bold floral print you bought in a moment of optimism that has only ever seen the inside of a closet. The magazines have taught you well. There are rules to this game, and breaking them means risking subtle glances and raised eyebrows at the mailbox. A lady is never underdressed, the advice column insisted, and never ever seen without her gloves. You wrestle with the girdle, a feat requiring both flexibility and resolve. It's a marvel of modern engineering, nylon elastic, 1,000 tiny hooks that promise to smooth and sculpt, transforming you from tired housewife to television hostess in 60 seconds or less. The advertisements claim you'll feel like a new woman, but what you mostly feel is compressed. With the last tug and a prayer, you smooth your skirt and step back, trying to ignore the faint outline of seams running up your torso like fault lines. Next, the gloves. White for daytime, taupe for outings, a pair of kid leather in a shade that was all the rage 2 seasons ago. You slip them on, fingers trembling only slightly, the pill you took 15 minutes earlier dissolving your anxiety as predictably as sugar in coffee. Your mind floats a little, thoughts blurred at the edges, and suddenly the prospect of greeting Mrs. Callahan at the corner doesn't seem quite so daunting. You scan your closet again. Polka dots feel jaunty, paisley is more demure. You opt for the dots, a decision equal parts courage and whimsy, and top it off with a string of pearls, the universal signifier of I've got it together. A dab of lipstick, a coat of mascara, and a quick assessment in the hallway mirror. You smile, a real one, or close enough, and watch it settle across your features, the perfect finishing touch. You step outside and feel the sun hit your shoulders. The world is a runway, your neighbours the ever-watchful audience. Mrs. Ferguson waves from her porch, her children lined up like miniature mannequins. You wave back, adjusting your purse, reminding yourself that the grass isn't actually greener, just weeded more recently. There's a strange solidarity in the daily parade. Every woman is performing, every outfit a silent message. I'm fine, everything's fine. See how well I'm doing? The truth, of course, is more complicated. The glossed-over eyes, the polite smiles, the soft but slightly desperate laughter at the PTA meeting, all of it is costume and choreography, meant to disguise the fatigue and insecurity underneath. At the market, you glide past aisles of other women, all equally trussed and composed. Compliments are exchanged with the careful detachment of diplomats. Love your dress. Is that a new hat? You look so put together. Each phrase is both a kindness and a gentle reminder that everyone is watching, always. You finish your errands, return home, and peel away the day's costume. Gloves off, shoes kicked aside, the girdle shucked like a too-tight skin. Relief floods in, equal parts freedom and exhaustion. For a moment you see yourself in the mirror. No pearls, no gloss, just a woman who survived another suburban fashion show. Her smile faded, but her spirit somehow still intact. You stack your outfit for tomorrow, ready to begin again. Because in 1950s suburbia, it's not just about looking the part. It's about endurance, grace, and the quiet understanding that sometimes the bravest thing you can wear is that placid, practiced smile. The station wagon smells faintly of crayons, milk, and anxiety. As you ferry a chorus of children to school and piano lessons, you practice your deepest breaths and most serene nods, pretending that the sound of backseat bickering is just part of the suburban soundtrack and not a trigger for a complete emotional unravelling. Morning sunlight bounces off the chrome bumpers, and the car's bench seats are sticky from the previous day's juice box mishap. You herd the children into the wagon with the authority of a zookeeper managing particularly clever monkeys. Backpacks are tossed haphazardly, hair ribbons are adjusted, and an ongoing argument about the relative merits of dinosaurs versus astronauts resumes at full volume before you've even put the car in reverse. You offer a cheerful seatbelts, everyone, though in the 1950s that's more wishful thinking than law. The engine rumbles to life. Your grip on the steering wheel tightens as you back down the driveway, dodging a rogue tricycle and waving to Mrs. Callahan, who's already wrangling her own offspring into the family sedan. You envy her composure, her practiced wave, her unwavering lipstick. Then remember she too probably has a little helper tucked away in her glove compartment, or, at the very least, an extra packet of breath mints. The drive begins, and so does the symphony of requests. Can we listen to the radio? Do we have to pick up Timmy? Billy poked me. You respond with gentle deflections, your tone as measured and sweet as condensed milk. Somewhere between the second stop sign and the first sharp turn, you achieve a state of meditative acceptance. The road ahead is long, but you've survived tougher journeys, like last week's dentist appointment double-header, or the time someone let loose a grasshopper in the back seat. The station wagon, your trusty vessel, rattles over potholes and past yards lined with picket fences and trimmed hedges. At each stop, another child clambers in or out, bringing with them fresh grievances, mismatched shoes, or forgotten lunches. You've become an expert at quick farewells, reassuring parents, and the delicate art of pretending not to notice when someone wipes sticky hands on the upholstery. Occasionally you catch your own reflection in the rearview mirror, eyes determined, mouth set in a line of both resolve and resignation. You practice your everything's under control smile, the one you'll need for the inevitable encounter with a teacher, a coach, or the head of the PTA. If only they could see the frantic choreography behind the scenes, notes in the dashboard, spare socks in the glove box, a box of animal crackers tucked beside your secret stash of tranquil reassurance. The kids' voices fade into background noise as you let your mind wander. Did you remember to defrost the chicken for dinner? Did you sign that permission slip? Is today the day for piano, or is it art club? Domestic life is a relay race with no clear finish line, just an endless loop from home to school to home again, with an occasional detour for spilled milkshakes or emergency bathroom stops at gas stations that haven't seen a mop since the war. You finally arrive at school, children tumbling out like clowns from a circus car, barely pausing to wave goodbye. You offer your best, have a wonderful day. Before pulling away, the quiet in the car sudden and almost disorienting. You take a moment to enjoy it, savouring the temporary silence, knowing it's only a pause before the afternoon round. Driving home, you roll down the window, letting the breeze carry away some of the stress. The station wagon may be battered, but you made it. No breakdowns, no meltdowns, yours or theirs. Just another successful lap on the domestic circuit. You pull into the driveway, ready to tackle whatever comes next, bolstered by the knowledge that, In the carpool chronicles of suburbia, survival is victory, and sometimes that's enough. You file into the pew, hands folded neatly, and sing hymns beneath the watchful eye of neighbours and the ever-present cloud of community judgment. The preacher talks of inner peace, and you wonder if he's ever experienced the serenity of a Sunday morning fortified by tranquilizers, polite small talk, and the collective agreement to ignore anything that disturbs the peace. Church begins with rituals as familiar as the creak of the old wooden pews. You smooth your skirt, adjust the hymnal, and guide your family into position. Husband on one side, children sandwiched in between like slightly rumpled bookends. Around you, the congregation assembles in their Sunday best, hair curled, ties straight, every collar starched and every smile meticulously practiced. Mrs. Callahan winks from 2 rows ahead, her hat adorned with enough faux flowers to shame a botanical garden. The organist launches into a sturdy hymn, and the voices around you rise in unison, a swelling chorus of faith, hope, and collective anxiety about whose casserole will win the church supper later. You sing along, lips moving, eyes wandering, your mind drifting from the lyrics to the list of chores waiting at home, and the mental tally of which child is most likely to misbehave before the benediction. When the sermon begins, the preacher booms about peace, contentment, and the promise that if you simply believe hard enough, the struggles of daily life will melt away like butter on hot toast. He talks about grace under pressure, about gratitude, about the importance of community. You nod and smile at the right moments, but your thoughts flicker. Does he know about the secret stash of patience you keep in your purse? About the modern miracles not found in scripture but in a discreet orange bottle prescribed with a wink and a handshake by Dr. Thompson? You glance around the sanctuary. Everyone seems absorbed, but you catch subtle signs of solidarity. A knowing glance exchanged between mothers, the sympathetic shrug from Mrs. Ferguson as she corrals her youngest, the way even the choir director looks like she's holding back a sigh. You all occupy this shared space, suspended between faith and the intricate choreography of appearances. After the sermon, it's time for the fellowship, code for coffee, cookies, and another round of polite interrogation. The church basement buzzes with conversation, laughter just a little too loud, compliments just a little too forced. You navigate the crowd with a practiced grace, fielding questions about your husband's job, your children's grades, and that delightful jello mold you brought last week. You offer the same safe answers, grateful for the invisible barrier between fine and too much information. Someone mentions the preacher's inspiring words, and you nod along, secretly tallying up the week's transgressions and minor failures. The late dinner, the missed recital, the stack of unanswered letters on the kitchen table. It's all about balance, someone says, sipping burnt coffee, counting your blessings. You smile and agree, thinking how balance is sometimes less about gratitude and more about dosage. As the crowd disperses, you gather your family, smoothing cowlicks and rebuttoning jackets, ensuring everyone looks just as composed leaving as they did coming in. You drop a bill into the collection plate, more out of habit than conviction, and offer one last round of smiles before retreating into the safety of your station wagon. Driving home, the children's voices return, and the real world seeps back in. Grocery lists, unfinished chores, the slow build to Monday morning. The peace you found in the pew is fleeting, more the result of ritual and routine than revelation. Still, you find comfort in the shared charade. Sunday morning might be more about forgetting to feel than feeling saved, but for a little while, surrounded by neighbours and hymns, you can almost believe that grace, like serenity, can be summoned, even if it comes in the form of a pill and a practiced smile. So tonight, as you tuck yourself into bed, whether it's memory foam, a well-loved couch, or a mountain of unfolded laundry, take a moment to remember the world you just survived. A world of smiling housewives, endless casseroles, and a pharmaceutical solution for everything from dirty floors to existential dread. You navigated bridge clubs, PTA meetings, and more Tupperware than any one person should ever have to stack, all with a tranquil grin and a calmness that could only be described as suspiciously pharmaceutical. You saw how a little orange pill turned daily chaos into manageable background noise, smoothing out the sharp edges of perfection and the silent panic beneath polished surfaces. But behind those magazine-ready smiles and spotless kitchens was a resilience that's easy to miss. A generation of women who did what they had to do, day in and day out, with or without help from the medicine cabinet. Because sometimes, surviving the expectations of the American dream required just as much courage as surviving a medieval plague. So as you drift off tonight, maybe whisper a quiet thank you to the housewives who went before us, the ones who perfected the art of smiling through it, who handled pressure cookers and pressure from every direction, and who taught the world that sometimes it's okay to ask for a little help, even if it comes in a bottle with a child-proof cap. Be grateful for modern comforts, and maybe even more grateful that nobody expects you to vacuum in heels or maintain a cocktail smile 24/7. Because history isn't just grand battles and world-changing events, it's also the quiet, determined, and sometimes ridiculous ways ordinary people got through each day. Sleep well, knowing that you've earned your rest, and maybe, just maybe, that you're a little less alone than you thought. Good night.